Imagine this. It's the middle of the night, you're sound asleep, and then bam, you're jolted awake by what sounds like explosions in the distance. You grab your phone, and the news alerts lighting up your screen, they're even crazier than the noise.
I mean, what if you woke up and your country's president was just gone? Not voted out, not impeached, just vanished, snatched in the middle of the night by a foreign military. Sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, right?
Well, on January 3rd, 2026, for millions of people in Venezuela, this wasn't a movie, it was reality. Their president, Nicolas Maduro, was there 1 minute and gone the next, and the entire world woke up to a geopolitical earthquake.
The mission even had a code name that sounds like it was made for the big screen, Operation Absolute Resolve. It was this incredibly audacious, lightning-fast plan. So the question is, how in the world do you pull off something like this? How do you kidnap a head of state?
Well, you do it fast. I mean, look at this timeline. The whole thing was over in less than 5 hours. By 1 a.m., U.S. forces are in position. At 2 a.m., explosions rock the capital, creating a diversion. By 2:30, a ground team is raiding Maduro's compound. And by 4:30 a.m., he and his wife are on a U.S. Navy ship. It's just stunningly precise.
And make no mistake, this was not some small, sneaky operation. This was a massive show of force. We're talking over 150 military aircraft in the sky providing cover. It's like they threw a giant steel net over the entire city to make sure that ground team could get in and get out without a single problem.
So, what was the official reaction from the U.S., after pulling off something this unprecedented? Pure triumph. The Secretary of War called it sheer guts and grit. In Washington's eyes, this wasn't some shadowy international incident. It was a moment of American glory. So, what on earth led them to do it?
And that's the real question, isn't it? How do we get here? How do relations between two countries get so bad that a pre-dawn military raid to capture a president becomes an actual policy option? To understand that, we have to rewind the clock a bit, to the year before.
And when you look at 2025, you see this relentless drumbeat of escalation. It was just one thing after another. First, revoking protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants. Then, a massive tariff to choke off their oil money. Then they doubled the bounty on Maduro's head to an insane $50 million. After that came these deadly anti-narcotics operations at sea. And the final chess move? Parking the biggest aircraft carrier in the world right off the Venezuelan coast. The message couldn't have been clearer.
So, what was this really all about? I mean, was this a noble fight against a dangerous drug lord, a so-called narco-terrorist? Or was it about something else? Something a little more profitable?
You've basically got two very different stories here. The official story, the one that's packaged for the evening news, is all about narco-terrorism. Maduro, the supposed leader of a drug cartel, a threat to U.S. security. It's clean, it's simple, and it's based on a real indictment from 2020. But then, there's the other story. The one that smells a whole lot like black gold. See, Venezuela just happens to be sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet, and the administration wasn't exactly quiet about wanting to get in there and rebuild the industry.
And hey, you don't even have to read between the lines. Here's President Trump himself, just hours after the raid. He said the goal was to get Venezuela back on track so it could make a lot of money. He framed it as a good thing for everybody, sure, but that emphasis on making money is, well, it's hard to ignore.
An operation this bold, this brazen, doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It sent shockwaves around the globe. Because when the world's biggest superpower decides it can just go and grab another country's leader, the old rulebook gets tossed right out the window, and everybody else starts to get very nervous.
This whole thing was basically the public debut of a new piece of foreign policy, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Now, the original Monroe Doctrine from way back when basically told Europe, hey, stay out of our backyard, the Americas. This new version, it's a bit punchier. It says the U.S. has the right to intervene, with force, anywhere in its backyard to protect its interests. It's a pretty bold statement.
And as you can probably guess, the rest of the world was, let's say, divided. At an emergency meeting at the UN, China did not hold back. They called it illegal and bullying. Plain and simple. For them, this was a rival power going way too far.
Russia was even more dramatic. Their representative said the U.S. was basically acting like a supreme judge with the right to invade any country it wants. The big fear here was about precedent. If the U.S. can do this, who's to stop others?
But it wasn't a universal condemnation, not at all. Some of Venezuela's own neighbors, like Paraguay, saw it completely differently. To them, Maduro was a terrorist, and this was a necessary, if brutal, step to bring back democracy. So even within the region, people were totally split.
And this is the key takeaway. This action basically kicked off a global debate about a return to spheres of influence. You know, the old idea that big powers get to do what they want in their own neighborhood. If America can do this in Venezuela, what's stopping Russia from doing something similar near its borders? Or China in Southeast Asia? All those unwritten rules of international politics suddenly felt incredibly fragile.
Which, of course, leads to the final chilling question that was on everyone's mind. If this is the new playbook, who's next? Well, the administration didn't leave people guessing for long. They put other nations on notice. The list had some of the usual suspects, right? Iran, Cuba, but then it also included regional partners like Colombia and Mexico. And then there was the real head-scratcher, Greenland. And if you needed any proof of how serious this was, check this out. This isn't some deep, classified diplomatic cable. This is a tweet from someone in the president's inner circle showing an American flag draped over Greenland with one single ominous word, soon. It's about as subtle as a punch to the face. And that's where all of this leaves us. The raid in Caracas was never just about one country or one leader. It was about tearing up the global rulebook. And it forces all of us to ask a really uncomfortable question. When somebody does that, what happens next? What does the world look like on the day after?